previously in the past times. So the kings would travel sometimes in the very big whole entourage of this. So before the caravan of the king, before he can get to any place far ahead, there will be some people going to clear the road, because olden days, whatever the situation would have been at that time, so now they would far ahead, 1-2 kilometers ahead of the king and his caravan, there will be people coming to clear everybody out of the way. So once one king was going with his whole caravan, and these people who would now do this job, they were way ahead, clearing everybody out. So this will create a lot of excitement, a lot of king is coming, king's caravan is coming, people will start clearing the way out. So as they were doing this, one person on the way was lying down, fast asleep, on the side of the road. But now they wanted nobody anywhere around the road, so they're trying to move him out. So he is sleeping peacefully, all the commotion is happening around him, it's like he cannot even hear what's going on. Eventually they woke him up. He got disturbed from his sleep. He said, "What's the problem? Why are you waking me up?" He says, the king is coming. So he said, "What king is coming?" He said, "No, the king is coming." He said, "He's not the king. He is the slave of my slave. What king are you talking about?" Now this was like a major insult. The king, you're calling the king the slave of your slave. So now this was some pious person, and at that time, this was a lesson that he was giving. So now he said, "What king are you talking about? He is the slave of my slave." So he said, "What do you mean he's the slave of your slave?" He says, "Actually, he is the slave of his desires. Whatever his desire comes, he must do. Whether it might be good for him or bad for him, doesn't matter. Anything that he desires, he must do it. So he has become the slave of his desires. And desires is something I have brought under control. Desires are my slave. If I am not happy about that desire, then I just block it right there. So the desires are my slave, and he is a slave of desires. So he has become the slave of my slave." This was meant to be a lesson, that a person who becomes a slave of his desires, then he is nothing. Because then those desires are going to drag him in any direction. That is one of the worst slaveries that a person can fall into. Slavery of where the person previously, they used to be slaves, the person used to be owned by someone. That was a small thing. That was a very small thing, that he is owned by somebody. This is a worse situation, that a person has become the slave of his desires. Because then in that situation, there is nothing left for the destruction of a person. That desire will take him and keep dragging him, and his deen will also get destroyed, his dunya will get destroyed also. How many a person lost his whole dunya, lost his family, lost everything, purely because he became the slave of his desires. So these desires will take a person, desires just keep dragging in any direction. Desire of looking at anything, the person now says, "Well, I just can't resist, I just can't restrain myself." So now he's become a slave of that. A person has become the slave of the desire of some substance that he's taking, whatever he might be. Now that has become his addiction, he has become a slave of it. So now he says that I just cannot do without this. Somebody becomes a slave of that desire of being stuck on the phone, on social media, on whatever other things. That becomes a slavery. When a person gets into the slavery of these things, then these things command him. These things then drag him in the direction they want to take him. And obviously, there's nothing left then for the destruction of a person. So the issue is to come out of the slavery. Thing is to come out of the slavery, and that doesn't happen without a person being committed to that objective and taking the necessary help from those who can assist him to come out of that addiction. Otherwise, a person like he's a slave of somebody has to buy him off from there. Somebody has to buy him out of that slavery and free him from that slavery. So likewise, a person thinks on his own that I'm fine. But he just gets deeper into that slavery and gets deeper into the harm and destruction. Allah Ta'ala gives.
अल्लाह अल्लाह कैसा प्यारा नाम है, आशिकों का मीना और जाम है।